Good afternoon, good evening, everyone, and welcome to Afro News Live. In fact, we're calling this segment On the Record. I think I like that, On the Record. That'll be our inaugural name for these kinds of conversations. And we are so thrilled this afternoon, it may be evening where you are, but we're thrilled this afternoon to have with us the mayor of Baltimore City, Mayor Brandon Scott, who has been the mayor of Baltimore since 2020, having served before that as president of the city council, as a councilman for many years. But he is Baltimore's mayor. And so, Mayor Scott, we are really happy to have you here with us this afternoon. So I
Thank
said,
you.
you're welcome. I said who you were, but I didn't say who I am. So I'm Francis Toni Draper, a CEO and publisher of the country's oldest continuously published. We're not a newspaper anymore, but a media company, Black-owned media company in the country. And joining us this afternoon in this conversation is managing editor of the AFRO, Alexis Taylor. Hey, Alexis, good to see you.
Hello.
As well. We're glad to have you. And managing director of Word in Black, Joe Williams. Hi, Joe. How are you? So just a quick commercial about Word in Black without going into too much detail. We are the nation's digital daily, Mr. Mayor, made up of 10 of the most iconic, legacy, legendary Black publications, Black-owned publications in the nation. And so there it is, right up on the screen. But in respect of your time and knowing that this is the night where you're getting ready to go and cheer on the Ravens as we face the visiting Detroit Lions as we go to 2-1. I'm going to make that prediction right now.
Right, claim it.
That's right, claim it. That's what we have to do. We're going to get started. And so this afternoon, we're going to have a fairly brief discussion, but hopefully it'll be one that'll be very, very meaningful. It is to me, on the topic of cancel culture and the freedom of the press. We are in a very, very toxic environment right now, especially as it relates to the First Amendment, democracy, freedom of the press, which is the fourth estate. And so we want to get into the conversation. Mr. Mayor, we know you have some very, very strong opinions about this topic. And so I am going to turn it over to Alexis and Joe, and I'm going to enjoy the conversation. I'll give some signals when we get like in the last 5 minutes or so. But go on, Alexis. What do you want to ask Mayor Scott today?
All right, Mayor Scott, we're going to jump right in on this censorship topic. In the wake of the brutal September death of conservative commentator Charlie Kirk, we've seen a wave of censorship across the country. Everyday people, we've seen journalists such as the former Washington Post opinion columnist Karen Attia come under fire for their comments on the situation. What do you have to say about the censorship that we've seen nationwide?
Well, listen, we've heard for a long time about the importance of the freedom of speech and being able to say things because this is a protection that you have in this country. And it just seems that this, Alexis, is now the latest attempt to rewrite history, erase things, and undermine things that are supposed to be able to be there as a freedom, but also to be able to be accountability, right? And when you see what's happening here, listen, I just want to be very clear again. Political violence is not acceptable. You know me, I'm big on anti-gun violence. I don't want that to happen to anyone. But at the same time, we cannot live in a country where we can have an administration and have folks who are saying that they want people to be locked up, or these people should have this happen to them or that happen to them. And then on the flip side, when Jimmy Kimmel, for example, just lays out some things that I thought were very clear, he was very measured in his remarks. I don't think he was disrespectful in any way. Have this person fired. You can have the young woman from the Washington Post fired from her job for just laying out things that were actual fact as a reporter, as she's supposed to do. And Jimmy Kimmel's obviously a comedian. And I think that when you dig deeper into this, Alexis, it really goes to what is happening in this country. We have this deep attempt to rewrite and whitewash history, right? Erasing slavery, changing names of bases, going into places where we're undermining folks' civil rights. And we see that happening in real time. And everyone should be not just aware, they should be fearful of that, but also should be doing everything that they can in their power to push back on that, right? Because when you look at what's happening, these kind of things and what people say at their workplace and what they say on their own personal social media has been happening for some time. I can only imagine how some folks on that far right side would feel if some of the people who hail racial epithets, who say things to me online or about me online, if they were fired from their job just because they said those hateful things. And we have to be we're mindful of this country, of the danger of that our democracy is in right now when it relates to the freedom of the press, the freedom of free speech, people's civil rights. These things are being taken away and being attacked every single day, and they're doing it in a very coordinated way with in some instances the help of the media or the fourth estate, as Dr. Draper said.
Thank you for that. I'm going to hand it off to Joe Williams. Joe, you have some questions about Black press. Oh, you're on mute, Joe.
Oh, we still can't hear you, Joe. Oh, and
all right,
he's off.
I'll hop in here. We'll come back to you, Joe. So, Mayor, when it comes to how media organizations shape not only that national conversation on censorship, but local news, how we're talking about how misinformation is put out and things of that nature. How important is the Black press? What is the role of the Black press in fighting back against misinformation, fighting back against censorship that we're seeing in mainstream press?
Yeah, I think that we have to be aware that this isn't your grandmother's TV station or your grandmother's newspaper, and there's no place in the country really where that's more clear than here in Baltimore, right? We have Sinclair Broadcasting that's headquartered right outside of the city of Baltimore. As you know, they own both Fox 45 and they own the Baltimore Sun, and you can see the narrative that they spin. Ironically, in this case, this was also the big national media company that helped push to say they weren't going to air Jimmy Kimmel, and he should be taken off the air. And when you look at the way that they do their news, it's all negative all the time. It's disinformation. A lot of the times, it's slanted to a specific view. It's irresponsible. For example, I know you know this, but just for those who are watching, just a few weeks ago, one of their reporters, Gary Collins, asked me and my staff if a Safe Streets violence intervention worker was a Crip simply because he had on a blue hat. I didn't know that any Black man that lived in Baltimore that had a blue hat on was automatically a gang member and a Crip in Baltimore, in Park Heights, right? That kind of journalism, that kind of slant, that kind of telling folks over and over again that these things and these people are bad and this is what we have to change. And when you're talking about stations whose leader literally said way back in 2016 that his stations are there to carry Trump's message, our folks here and across the country have to understand and be able to disseminate the information coming out and understanding what's really at play here, which makes organizations in Black media, especially for Black people who are often the ones who are turned into the big bag boogeyman by these folks, to how much more important Black media is, and folks that they can trust, and folks that will do the job of being a real journalist and asking the tough questions, no matter how someone looks or how they personally feel about them, but that will do it in a way that does not slant it, that does not carry out a particular political agenda for a reason. And that's what we're seeing time and time again, more increasingly across the country.
Well, Mayor Scott, I apologize for the technical difficulties, but we've got it ironed out now. What I wanted to ask you is about how these sorts of stories hamstring what it is that you're trying to do in Baltimore, and whether or not you believe that the Black community is specifically targeted for this kind of misinformation. I mean, I can imagine that if you're going around town trying to talk to your constituents, that some of these things that they may hear may have come up, and they might want to ask you about that. And you personally have been impacted by this. Can you talk a little bit about that? Number one, what is this doing to how the rhetoric is affecting an agenda, or does it have an agenda? And what does this do to you personally? Because I know you've suffered a lot of personal attacks that you mentioned earlier.
Yeah, I think Joe, listen, and I'm a big boy. I can handle it. I know what I signed up for, and I always say I do it the way that I do it because I want to be the person that starts to push on these systems that have been put in place to tear our people down time and time and time again, right? And I often go back to the Malcolm X quote about the media and the press and having the oppressor look like the oppressed and vice versa. But yes, that has helped. Hurt in many cases across the city of Baltimore. When you think about in that particular station, for example, who for the first 2 years, a little bit less than 2 years that I was in office, asked me every single day when I was going to meet my goal of reducing homicides in Baltimore by 15%. And then starting in September of 2022, it's just like it disappeared, right? And now the way that they tell the story is that, the mayor and his police department have nothing to do with violence reduction. The violence intervention workers that work for them have nothing to do. It's just they moved on to something else because now the goalpost is going to be moved. But when you think about some of the personal attacks, that part doesn't bother me, right? The fact that one of their reporters asked me essentially if I was a BGF gang member because somebody who was convicted for murder said that, trying to get a lesser sentence, right? That's racist. But I know what I signed up for, and I know how the media is. But the disinformation and how it does specifically try to create boogeymen out of black people in Baltimore, whether it be violence intervention workers, whether it be teachers in school, whether it be young people, right? You can see how that impacts, and it impacts our folks the most, especially the elderly in our community, who are the ones who watch it the most. And they come to me and say, well, I saw this on the TV station, and why are you guys doing this? And I have to spend that time explaining to them that basically everything that they heard was a lie, right? And that everything that they heard was told in this different slant, and they weren't telling the full truth to these things. And it can undermine some of the progress that we have made in the city, right? Because as you and I are talking right now, we have the fewest amount of homicides that Baltimore has ever had through a September the 22nd on record, because they've only been keeping these stats for 50 years. But you don't hear that over and over and over again. If homicides were up 30%, they will be asking me that 3 or 4 times a day. And it really plays into how you can convince people that their place, their people aren't of value, and how they should move and how they should go away. And we know what happens when folks leave out of a city, then they're replaced by other folks. It's all a part of a grand plan, and we just have to continue to push back on it.
Well, see, that's the thing, though. Pushing back is like really hard, mainly because, I can't remember what philosopher said it, but the truth uh, takes takes twice as much time to get around as the lie does.
Yeah.
And when you have an administration like you do right now in Washington, talking very openly about sending troops in, about the city is crime ridden, that's really hard to push back on because the president has a national audience where you're not going to get that kind of exposure. Talk a little bit about how that affects your decision making and whether or not you see the National Guard on the horizon, like a couple other cities have done, have seen, and if that is affecting any kind of decision making that you're making in the near term future.
Well, first and foremost, Joe, we're never going to be distracted from our number one goal in Baltimore, and that's continuing to reduce violence in our city. Even though we have a 50-year low or on record low, that's not good enough for me because unlike many folks in elected office, both locally and nationally, really around the country, it's different for me. It's different when that gun's been pointed in your face. It's different when you've had to duck bullets. It's different when you've lost friends over the years. For me, that's always going to be goal number one. And the president or anyone else is going to distract us from that. And we're not going to be distracted from the strategies that we have put in place that have worked. We've had a comprehensive violence prevention plan that's required by law now in Baltimore. We had it fully implemented through September 2022, and you can literally go back to September 2022 and see it start to fall off a cliff. No one's going to distract us for that because this is a all and above approach, and it's a deep partnership approach. Myself, the police department that works under my command that is focused on those who are most likely to be the victim or perpetrator of gun violence. We give those folks an opportunity to change their life. If they don't, we'll put you in prison, turning them over to our partners in the state's attorney's office and our attorney general's office here in Baltimore, who are both doing great jobs of prosecuting those cases, whether we're sending them guns cases, drug cases, murder cases, robbery cases, carjacking cases. That will continue to happen. Our community violence intervention work, whether it's Safe Streets, so We Are Us, all these other folks who are in this ecosystem are going to continue to do that work. But we also have to be prepared for what you can expect from this administration is the unexpected. And we're going to explore all of our options. We have a great working relationship with our governor and his team, who are fully bought in, who are big supporters, who are dedicating resources to help us drive down violence even further. We have the best congressional delegation in the United States Congress. And right now we're focused on their work, but also preparing and having the necessary conversations and putting things in place if that happens. But when you talk about those folks who don't want us to succeed, I've now beaten them twice in election, and I've now beaten them back at the ballot box when they've been trying to change the structure of city government simply and solely because I won. We're not scared of them.
But see, here's the thing, though. A lot of what you're talking about, those are strategies that they're very good in place. They're very good on the ground, but there are some things that you really can't control, i.e., the funding. Whether or not you're going to lose funding from the federal government, whether or not the state's going to lose enough funding to give you to help implement those strategies. Talk a little bit about how that's affecting your decision making, and whether or not you see that as a problem that you may soon have to solve if you haven't had to solve already.
Yeah, we prepared for that, right? And even when we started our group violence reduction strategy and the CVIP, we knew that we wouldn't always have the deep partnership that we had in the administration under the Biden-Harris administration. So, for example, our group violence reduction strategy, before the president started to make these cuts to community violence programs and law enforcement around the country, I'll be very, very clear that right now you've seen the biggest cuts to law enforcement that you've ever seen. When you think about the federal agencies, FBI, ATF, DEA, all of those folks have been cut, and those who have remained have been taken off their cases that when they're supposed to be working on gun traffickers and drug traffickers and hunting down folks to do immigration. I want the people to know that's what's happening every single day, and that does not build public safety in neighborhoods. But we knew that this day probably could come. So we took positions that we had on federal grants and put them on the city's dime. We've always had our programs and things funded also by our philanthropic partners, right? We have to continue to do those things because we cannot solely rely on the federal government. Even though we have the best federal delegation and we know that they'll be able to bring home resources for us, we can't just solely rely on that.
Okay, so like the game, this is like the 2-minute warning. We're almost out of time. Thanks, Jay and Alexis. But Alexis, we do have the best federal delegation, and I'm partial because I'm Baltimorean, born and bred. So we have the best mayor in the country as well, Mayor Brandon Scott. But Alexis, would you ask the closing question? We're streaming on Facebook, on IG, on LinkedIn, on YouTube. I believe people can go back and watch this a little bit later. I'm gonna put my plug in now for supporting the Black press. wordinblack.com, Black Press USA, AFRO.com. The mayor said the media, but all media is not the same. And so, Alexis, you have one final question. And then, Mr. Mayor, once you address that, anything else that you would like to say, we want to give you that opportunity. Let me thank everybody for tuning in. Glad to have you with us this afternoon. Joe Williams, you're the best. Thank you for joining us. Alexis, kudos to you as well. You're the best at what you do as well. And so, Alexis, you get the last question. And then, Mr. Mayor, after you answer that question, feel free to say anything you'd like in closing. And thanks to our producers as well.
Yes, I kind of have a two-part question.
Okay.
So, throughout this year, the federal delegation, but our local leaders here, including you, Mayor Scott, you all have made a name for yourselves in speaking loud and proud about Baltimore City, about what Maryland can do. What is it that keeps you, your voice strong? Why will you personally not be censored when it comes to what you have to say about Baltimore and Maryland as a whole?
Yeah, two things, Alexis. One, I'm built different, and Baltimore is built different. Coming from the family that I come from, these folks who escaped rural poverty in rural North Carolina and rural Virginia to come here and provide a life that was, for me, 10 times better than what they had. And our life was hard growing up. I'm never going to shy away from that. I was raised by a family of strong Black people, Black women, and Black men who said that you always have to stand up, not for just you, but for your family and for your people, no matter what the consequences are for you personally. And that's why I do that for Baltimore every day, because this is about being a part of something and fighting for something that's greater than yourself. And for me, I'm fighting for my children, my sons, my daughter, my wife, my family, and Baltimore. This place that literally made me who I am. They gave me opportunity that no other place would. And I have to do it because this is about my people, and I'll never shy away from that.
All right. And this is truly the last question. Later this week, we will see you at the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation's annual legislative conference. How important is collaboration with other Black legislators in this area and from around the country? And what goals do you have from that conference, attending that, speaking and collaborating with the legislators that are going to be at the conference in DC this week?
Well, listen, this is probably one of the most important CBCs that we've had in a long time, because we have to be able to organize and strategize. I'm looking forward to, they have me very busy on panels. I'll be on panels with Congresswoman McLean, with Senator Warnock, with my brother and sister mayors, including the president of the African American Mayors Association, Van Johnson. I'm the first vice president, and my brother Randall Woodfin from Birmingham, Alabama. And it's about us continuing to collectively work together and coming together in this way to fellowship, to spread important information and strategy, especially working with our congressional delegation, because we have to remember that here in Maryland, we're spoiled, Alexis, right? Our congressional delegation comes home every day, so we get to see ours all the time. That's not the case for people around the country. And for my brother and sister mayors, this is a very important time for them to be able to work directly with their folks face to face, which is something that I can do anytime I want. And we look forward to doing that and growing the understanding of what cities need right now from their congressional representatives around the country. And we know that we're all going to be tied in together. But the last thing that I would just say is that for everyone watching, this is a very important time. Know who you're getting your news and your information from. The Baltimore Sun of the old is gone. The Fox 45 of the old is gone. We have to be very careful and mindful about where and how you're getting your information and what those people are tied to, because this is a time when democracy really is under attack, and we have to push forward for the truth in everything, but also push forward to fight to keep our democracy afloat.
Well, on that note, we're going to end. Thank you, Mayor Scott. Get your news from AFRO.com, from wordinblack.com, from blackpressusa.com, from your local Black newspaper, along with whatever other outlet actually tells the truth. Mayor Scott, thank you so much for stopping by today for our conversation. Again, Joe and Alexis, thank you. Thanks for everybody who tuned in. Go Ravens, and we'll see you the next time that we have a live broadcast. Thank you.